Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be showing you how to operate the Westland Wasp helicopter. This is a neat little thing that we got from the Aviator edition of Flight Sim 2024, and it's an interesting helicopter. This is another one of those what I like to call Gary's Mod helicopters, because basically, they said we just need a little compartment to keep the rain off the pilots, but everything else is fine. It's just like the ill-fated S-64 there. So the good thing here is because this is just an add-on aircraft, there's nothing special as far as pulling things in or out, but because it is a wheeled helicopter, it's got some kind of interesting little quirks, and I'll go ahead and get started with that right away. So climbing on inside, I love helicopters that are just helicopter. The best way to basically describe it is this thing was just optimized for simplicity. Basically, there's nothing above your head on this one. You got basically, if you need the little light, reading light on it, everything you need to care about is right here at your left hand, or of course you've got switches and handles and stuff like that. So there's a couple little fun things I've discovered about playing with this one, and just kind of getting the hang of it. I find it kind of damped, but it's not a bad thing. So first things first, we're going to go back here. We're going to disengage the rotor brake. There's a lovely little switch there that does that for you. When that's taken care of course, what we're going to do is we're just going to work our way through it. Kind of an interesting flow, to say the least. So I'm going to start on the left here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. See all these lovely circuit breakers? Some of these work, some of these don't. So the ones that do work, however, you definitely are going to want to make sure that you push in. So our starting, our aft, our forward. Coming over here, we have our two inverters, so we're going to need those. All these switches, of course, are going to be kind of extra details. Nothing we need to work. I'm going to swing down to the next line. I'm going to go ahead and pop on my anti-collision lights. We also have ourselves another identification lights. We can put this on pretty easy. You can just set that to the steady position. Fine for me. And again, I'm just working my way all the way over to the right here. We have a dual battery switch, something I think is kind of cool. We have a flight mode, and we have what they call ground mode. I'm going to take that, I'm going to pull that to the ground mode. Just click and drag there. And when you do that, you're going to see a little battery switch pop on. This is your caution light. You can just click that a couple times to make it go away. After you've done that, of course, we're going to come down across. We're going to leave the generator alone. I'm going to close the bus bar split. I've got a switch here for high pressure fuel cock. I'm just going to open that by clicking on it like that. We're going to open up the low pressure fuel cock, which is going to be right here. And then we have an ignition, and now we have a starter switch. We're basically ready to rock. But before we do that, go ahead and close off the hydraulic switch just by hitting that light real fast here, making sure everything else is go. That's it. That's as much as we need to do to prepare this helicopter for basically starting. I love how it says 0 power. That's kind of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the throttle here. I'm just going to crank it just a little bit. So again, you just have to crack it. And now we're ready to actually start it. So starting on this thing is real easy. All you're going to do is engage the starter, wait for the ignition to get to about 10-15%, or not the ignition, the RPM. Then we're going to flip on the ignition itself. So I'm going to start by clicking the starter. When you do that, you're going to get an angry little red light that's going to pop up, just notifying you that you've got the process starting. When we take a look up here, you'll notice that we're just gently starting to crank. Obviously, it's a ton of inertia to get that huge blade going. I'm very impressed that this thing is able to kind of basically drag itself to victory here. And as we can see, everything's slowly spooling up. And basically what we're waiting here is to get to about 10%. At 10%, that's going to give us the ability to kick on the ignition. Again, I find that kind of an interesting procedure, but it certainly works if you do the ignition kind of early. There's 8, 9, and by the time I get to the switch that says ignition, it's going to be 10%. Click, just like that. And if it kind of sticks, you can just go like that to crank on it, and it'll do that just like that. So a couple different numbers we're keeping an eye on here. First of all, we want to see that the jet pipe temperature is rising, which it is doing its little happy crunch. Coming over compressor RPM, we can see that's happily speeding up as well. I'm not having lag, believe it or not. That's just the way the instruments move. So we got a turbine pressures coming up. All of everything else, oil pressure is good. This thing is revving up itself. Percentage of torque is looking pretty good. Now I can go ahead and sit back and just kind of look around as this thing starts to spool up on its own. A bunch of the warning lights, of course, are all going to disengage once we get this thing properly done. I just love the style of indicators here where we have like a simple little system warning us that the generator's disengaged. And this little switch here that we can adjust it. One of the things you'll notice is as we spin up, you're going to hit kind of a sweet spot where everything just kind of mellows out and doesn't really want to increase on its own. If we want to give it a nice gentle push, we can come over to the throttle and actually give it a little bit of a crank here. Just be mindful of the throttle, of course. When we crank this thing up to about 30%, that's going to be more than enough to get us going. Make sure you collect it, by the way, is all the way down before you do something as silly as that. But you can hear everything's spinning up on its own. There's about 300 RPM. Once we get into the automatic governor range, this is going to spike, but don't worry about that. That's just the governor doing its job there. And it'll do, whoa, like I promised, just like that. you can see that we're in the correct power. You don't even have to bother with the throttle. 2 more switches we're going to have to hit here. We're going to have to turn the generator to the on position, just like that. And we're going to set the battery power all the way to the electric master, basically flight mode. We can go ahead and clear our caution here. It has done everything it needs to do as far as that goes. Pretty good, pretty good. Looking down, make sure our ignition's good. You could theoretically shut that off if you wanted to. I'm not going to stress about it too much at this particular point. Everything else is looking pretty darn good. Now we can go ahead and hit this guy if we needed to make sure nice and straight. You can see it's good straight here. Power's good, collective pitch is good. Everything is delightful. And now we're basically ready for takeoff. So this aircraft is a neat airplane because it's a super duper light scout helicopter. I mentioned in the real world this thing is much harder to fly than it would be in our virtual world here. But for us, they stabilized everything nice and smooth, keeping it easy. The cool thing with it, of course, is not a lot of space. Again, I'd love to see somebody who could sit back here and actually enjoy their flight with any sort of flight, but it is what it is. So what we're going to do first is we're going to gently lift up on the collective, just like that. You can see our collective node. And you can see we get to about 4 degrees, and this helicopter gets a little light on the wheels. Now, the nice thing is, with these wheels, is I actually can taxi around on the wheels. Now, you'll notice I'm sticking my slide kick slightly forward here. It's just not really going anywhere. Some people like to kind of do one of these things, and that will certainly get you rotating in the direction you're pointing. I'm going to go ahead and swing to the right here. Oh, there's somebody I can hit with my helicopter. I cannot wait. Obviously, if you're in career mode, which you can't fly this one in career, well, we wouldn't be being this silly. But for the purposes of our thing, I'm just going to use my little blade. Watch your head. Watch your head. Bonk. Also, how do you like the new hover aircraft? So when you're satisfied where you are, of course, parking, you can hit the brake all you want. You'll notice that there's no brakes. You basically just pull back if you want to slow down kind of thing. Now we're ready to rock. I'm going to go ahead and gently, smoothly add some power here. And again, adding collective is not power, although they kind of go together. And you'll see you can get to about 5 or 6 units, and it starts to get a little light on the skids again. So the cool thing with this helicopter is it's fairly well balanced. As I slowly start adding collective, all I have to do is add left foot, basically in equal amounts. And what's going to happen is we're going to suddenly get very light. You can see I'm about 7 units there. We're going to come up to 8 units. It's going to come right off the ground a couple feet. And now we can go ahead and do our little hover test here. You can see it's a very stable helicopter. It does not like to do the little kind of wandering helicopter thing that you probably have seen in other helicopters. There we go. It looks pretty good to me. It looks pretty good. All right. Not bad. Good hover test. I'm going to go ahead and push the nose forward here. We'll go ahead and apply a little tiny bit more collective. And our translational lift kicks in very quickly with this helicopter. You'll find that you're doing about 20 knots, and all of a sudden the thing is just going to rip into the sky here. Very, very nice. Delightful. And you can see we're holding about 9 angles, and this thing just wants to go. Go ahead and push my nose forward just a little bit here. Pick up some speed. Excellent. And you can see just like that, this thing just wants to travel, and that's one of the things I like about helicopters like that. It just goes. It's also incredibly stable for a helicopter. I've flown a lot of different types of helicopters in different games before, but this one is just simple. I think they did that intentionally. Come down here, go ahead and hide that real quickly there. It just makes it a little bit easier to see the direction we're traveling in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and execute my turn here. And you can see there we're just about pointing 120. We're going to come swing south here as we enjoy our turn. Now this helicopter is basically designed to be a scout helicopter, and it does a really, really nice job of that. It's got just enough speed to be able to be silly, but it's also nice and controllable, so you can do some really, really goofy things with it, which is what we'll do in a few moments here. Just want to build up some speed. So you can see we got about 80 knots, which is incredibly fast for helicopters. Again, different helicopters have different speed limits, but remember that this helicopter here is, like I said, it's like something Gary's mod would build here, but there's nothing wrong with that. I actually love that style of engineering, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest when I'm navigating. Traveling in this thing, very, very straightforward. Like I said, the cruise speed's pretty good. You notice I still have not really made an adjustment to my collective. It just basically, you get to 8 units, basically 8 degrees, and you can just sort of chill there. That's about as much as you need to make this thing to be a pretty easy to handle helicopter. One of the things you'll think right now is you're level, but I'm not level. I'm indeed going uphill here, and the reason I'm going uphill is, of course, I'm going uphill. It's a mountain, so even though it looks like I'm flat, I'm really not. So let's go have a little bit of fun here with this helicopter. Controls are very, very simple. Obviously, we don't want to push forward if we can help it. Go ahead and do that nice, gentle thing, but let's say, for example, we want to go ahead and use that mountain off of our 12 o'clock here. As we come out of the roll, you just want to go ahead and keep the nose down. You're going to have a tendency to kind of balloon upwards here as you're kind of ripping along. So we're going to pretend that there's some enemy forces on the other side of that mountain, right up by 12 o'clock there, and we're just going to sneak up on that mountain. So the trick here is that we've got about 3/4 of a mile to get there. I'm going to start backing the collective up just a little bit and just let the nose kind of come up on its own, and you're going to feel a point where the collective and the nose, basically, you don't have to pull it, and you just hold it like that. And again, you can see I'm about 4 degrees. And right as it starts to slow down, you're just going to go ahead and apply a little bit of left foot and a little bit more collective. And you can see just how effortlessly this helicopter is controlled. Go ahead and look at my window here. Again, we're using this as our point. Go ahead and check the window. Obviously, if the wind would be coming towards us, we'd be pushed down as we approach this cliff. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. All right. That's pretty good speed. Like I said, we'll see what happens when we get to the top. It's about 8. Power's pretty good. We're sitting here at the torque right now. You can see we're fine. We're only about 40% our torque, which is nothing. We can definitely go a lot higher, but you're going to need a lot of left foot to do so. And you can see right as we start to transition towards that hover there, you really, really need to get quick on the left foot. Otherwise, it's going to kind of drift away on you. All right, there we go. Let's go see if there's any enemy forces on the other side here. Now, one of the interesting add-ons to come out for Flight Sim recently is actually a go-kart, which I find kind of cool. There we go. Let's go settle into this little thing here, nice and easy. And again, everything's just slow and smooth. That's all you got to worry about. There we go. Now, if we were doing some monitoring of that little area over on that side, we could just kind of peek over there, take a look. And obviously, if you need to get out in a hurry, we could just jam on the controls and get the heck out. But again, you can see just how easily this helicopter can just do anything you need it to do. With most helicopters, of course, when you do want to hover this, a lot of left foot, and you can see we're using an enormous amount of torque in order to keep it straight, but that's perfectly fine. All right, let's head down to this valley here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of left foot. And we're just going to let the nose drop forward as we start to pick up speed. We just need to go ahead and keep an eye on the collective. If you're going to be ripping down the side of a mountain like I'm doing here, just remember if you increase your collective, you're going to run into some interesting problems as far as controllability and overspeed goes. But as you can see, this thing just glides. Delightful. If we want to go ripping down that little dirt road there like somebody in their Jeep right now, we can definitely float down there and check this out. Nevada, by the way, if you're not sure where we are right now. Looking pretty good out that window. We've got a nice little lake. Delightful. So let's go ahead and start thinking about landing this helicopter. So landing this helicopter, because of how they designed it, or at least they set up the controls, it's just so easy. It's a vacation, especially if you're coming from like one of the Cohenson helicopters or something like that. Those things are very sensitive in all the right ways for helicopters. This one is not, though. So first thing we want to do is we want to reconnoiter anything that we intend to land on. So I'm looking over my right here, and it looks like a pretty good flat spot, kind of like where the side of that mountain goes. What you want to do now is arrange yourself so that you have the advantage of the wind. So I'm looking down right there. I see it's pretty rocky. That actually is a no-go as far as landing goes. We could not safely land there because basically we'd probably suck a rock in or we'd hit something. But for the sake of video, we'll go ahead and do it anyway because we're dumb. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend I'm flying over this, and I don't see anything that's untoward, even though we definitely did. And now we're just going to go ahead and execute a nice gentle turn. Obviously, when you're turning, as I was mentioning before, you have to kind of give it a little bit of relaxation. Now, because we're a scout helicopter, you can really put some turn into this thing. There we go. As you turn, you're going to see your speed bleed off very, very quickly. This is not an airplane at a turn. There we go. And it just slows down to basically nothing. Nice. Landing this one, of course, in the real world is much, much easier because you can look out the bottom. It's a very awkward look out the bottom at any flight sim, as many of you are very, very familiar with here. The cool thing with this one is, of course, because we do have wheels, it's not that you could be rougher with the landing, it's that you don't have to be as precise with the landing, and this, of course, would be important if it was like a hot summer day and you just couldn't use your fuel power available. All right, take a look. Oh, that is nasty. You would not want to land here. This would be a very good chance we'd hit the ground and hit a rock and get stuck on the rock, and all sorts of bad things would happen, but hey, sometimes we got to do what we got to do. Nice and easy. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it just a general visible of the target area. A lot of left foot in this helicopter. There we go. I'm just going to settle. And you can see the helicopter comes down on its own. We just catch it a little bit. But remember, when you enter into a rotor and ground effect, this thing's going to have a tendency to kind of float. And you just need to be quick on the collective there to catch it. And obviously use less collective than you think you need. Whoa. It's one of the things I hate about overstabilized helicopters. I actually find them harder to land. There we go. We're on the ground. No brakes. So I'm going to go ahead and tip forward and give it just a little bit of collective. What did I say about the rocks? What did I say about the rocks? There we go. And basically, I'm going to have to sit here on the front wheel with my cyclic forward in order to stop from rolling backwards. So as you can see, this is a really, really slick helicopter. I'm actually basically balancing on the front tires. You can see him just looking at the back there. Kind of neat. And again, this is a very dangerous location. Lovely place in the desert, though. I mean, you've got some lots of little trees. Very, very cool helicopter. Shutdown, of course, on this one is very simple. The important thing that you need to remember when you're shutting down is that not only are you handling all the stuff as far as shutting fuel off, which you basically just hit this guy and that'll get us shutting down in a hurry, as you can see, but don't forget you do have the rotor brake that you're going to want to engage here. And also when you do all your lovely switches here, don't forget to shut the generator off and don't forget to shut your batteries off and reset. Enjoy.